everyone. Good afternoon, guests, colleagues, and friends. I'm Tamara Al-Halawani, Research Assistant in the Department of Law and Politics, and it is both an honour and a privilege to welcome you to SOAS University this afternoon for what promises to be a timely and incisive conversation with the esteemed Gazan human rights lawyer, Raji Sourani. Today's event is convened through the joint efforts of the Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers and the SOAS Influencing the Corridors of Power ICOP project, which is an initiative dedicated to bridging the divide between academic research and the political practice in Westminster, and to addressing the democratic deficit by injecting critical scholarship into the heart of policymaking. This afternoon's lecture, Rule of Law or Rule of the Jungle, Gaza, the UK and international law, confronts us with a fundamental provocation. Can international law serve as a genuine bulwark for the occupied and oppressed, or is its very edifice and selective application structurally complicit in their continued subjugation? As we chart this terrain amid a climate of impunity, audacity, and regrettably, the complete indifference of the international community, let us be clear that Gaza is not an abstract case nor an intellectual exercise. It is a crucible of lived experience, intensely human and often brutally so. It is, to echo Dr. Nima Sultani in August 2022, a litmus test for international law and the human rights system. To this end, Raji Sourani's life and work remind us that justice is not granted through deference or appeal. It must be demanded, even from systems structured to deny it, so that we may realise, however tenuous it may currently seem, its emancipatory potential. So just a quick note to say that the members on the panel today will be recorded, as will any comments made from the audience that will be heard but not seen. It will be then available on the SOAS ICOP YouTube channel to view after. But without further ado, I'll pass on to Dr. Deepa Govindarajan Driver, who is the Vice Chair of the Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers, member of the National Executive of the University and College Union, and Vice Chair of Finance Watch Brussels and lecturer at the Henley Business School, University of Reading, for a more fulsome introduction of our guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm grateful to see in the audience people who have been involved in documenting the civilian body count in Iraq, people who have been involved for almost 60, 70 years in the campaign for Palestine solidarity, people who have been involved in the campaign to free Julian Assange, comrades from the Haldane Society, comrades from across academia and MENA solidarity, and a lot of people who have been involved at the grassroots level in many of the important campaigns that have shaped our lives. I'm also grateful to those members of the press who are covering this event. I'm very, very honored to introduce Raji Sourani. Raji is the director of the Palestinian Centre for Human Rights. And having served time in Israeli prisons in the late 70s and in 1979 and thereafter, is somebody who knows from the inside what is going on within this apartheid brutalist system. I'm grateful that Raji, with his phenomenal experience, he is legal coordinator for the Palestinian delegation at the ICC and a member of the South African delegation legal coordinator at the ICC and member of the South African delegation at the ICJ, and therefore really on the forefront of the battle to defend not just Palestinian human rights, but the right for us to define ourselves as civilized human beings, because what is happening in Palestine today is not something we can easily countenance without reflecting on what we have ourselves become. Ghassan Kanafani said that the Palestinian cause is not a cause for Palestinians, but a cause for every revolutionary, wherever he is, as a cause for of the exploited and the oppressed masses of our era. And everything in this world can be robbed and stolen, except one thing. This one thing is the love that emanates from a human being towards a solid commitment or to a conviction or a cause. And I'm glad to be joined by so many of you who have shown that conviction in action. People like Derek, who have been involved in the medical community, People like Rada Karmi, Haim Rashid, Les Levido, Hamid Dardagan, Sam Weinstein, Sabi Sagal. There are so many names, I'm sure, and then people from the climate justice movement. So many good people around the room. I'm so grateful you are here. Thank you very much for being here. And I now invite Raji to speak to us for about half an hour, after which we will take questions from the audience and have a good discussion. I will try and bring in all questions from everybody, and maybe we might have to group a few, but we have enough time for discussion and really genuine. I think this discussion has to lead somewhere and for us to do something. It cannot just be a discussion on a Sunday afternoon where we walk away. So hopefully some action items that we take away from here. Thank you. Over to you, Raji. Would you like to use the mic or sit down? What would you prefer?
Always. Thank you. Thank you, Diva, so much. And thank you, Imma. I really appreciate it very much, and appreciate very much, to be in SOAS. In the short story, it's 57 years, and in the long story, 77 years since the Nakba began and the occupation began. And any expected after all these years, things should be business as usual in October 6, 2023. So that means Palestinians should accept the fact they are real good victims for criminal, belligerent, prolonged occupation. With that, what was the situation of the occupied territories? Precisely, Gaza in October 6, 2023. Gaza was subject to prolonged criminal blockade, 17 years, no movement for goods and individuals. They can decide the occupation, what we eat, what we drink. Maybe one thing they were not controlling, our sex life in Gaza. Otherwise, everything controllable. 60 drones in any given minute over Gaza skies. They watch every single thing. More 7 wars launched in the eye of the storm, civilian targets. In 2008, 9, 12, 14, Great March of Return 2017, 2021, 22, and May 23. You can smell the death everywhere, and you can feel and see the destruction everywhere. And Gaza turned to be like animal farm. The national community dumping to it some food and medicine. They may help in building clinic here or school there, baby street, or helping in sewage system on behalf of the occupation, who should be held responsible about civilians in the occupied territories. But Gaza always evil, and it's very well deserved treatment as such by the occupation. What about the West Bank? In Jerusalem, we have ethnic cleansing for Palestinians, whether Christians or Muslims, and we have policy of Judaization. Sheikh Jarrah was one of the landmarks just before the Intifada, and it's quite a clear evidence about the brutality and the racism of the Israelis. West Bank, 1 million settler. inside the West Bank. And settlements expanding vertically, horizontally. New settlements are built, legal, illegal, name it. Bypass road, enclaving the entire settlements inside Israel and connected it with the major cities, and ghettoizing Palestinian villages, camps, and cities, and giving it no leverage to expand by any level, now or in the future. Incursions for cities, villages, and camps almost every day. Shooting, looting, free hand for settlers to do whatever in coordination or without coordination with the Israeli army. Land are confiscated. To move between parts and pieces of the West Bank, it's rather mission impossible. Between Nablus, Jenin, Tulkarem, south and north, Jericho Republic disconnected from the rest, Jerusalem disconnected, the entire West Bank and Jerusalem disconnected from the Gaza Strip. This is after 30 years of Oslo Accords. This is after 30 years of peace agreement signed. We are having a state of blockade, social economical suffocation in Gaza, untolerable, unbearable, inhumane, and in the West Bank, a new brand of apartheid, but much, much more bloody than the South African apartheid. We have to be good victims. We shouldn't complain. We are not Ukrainians. We are Palestinians. When Russia invaded and occupied Ukraine, Europe in a few days revolted and shaped up, and they said, how that can be in the 21st century, any dare to occupy other people and to invade other people. Ukrainians do have the right of self-determination. They have the right to resist. And they called upon only free Europeans and Americans to go take arms and join their Ukrainian counterparts in resisting the Russian occupation. And they vowed to support the Ukrainians with arms, with money, and help them in even through ICJ and the ICC. And they imposed 7 waves of sanctions days after this. And they said, we will continue supporting that because Ukrainians do deserve justice, dignity, and freedom. And rightly they are. We, the occupied, invaded Palestinians, said, oh my God, I mean, finally, Europe and US waked up. They knew what the occupation means. They know what the invasion means. And they know what's the self-determination. Definitely, after 1 or 2 months, they will wake up and begin supporting Palestinians because we are just with the same situation. And even our situation worse. They are using our rhetoric, which we used, I mean, for tens of years. And now it's about time, I mean, to Palestinians. But seems we were stupid, neither naive, because this wasn't the case. And nobody really, I mean, paid any attention. And we were pleading on October 7th, and afterwards to the ICC prosecutor to do something. And he didn't move anywhere. He didn't listen at all. So what I want to say, can you be in international law selective? Can you politicize it? And we are at SOAS, at the School of Law, where all this rhetoric of Nuremberg trials, of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of Convention of Prevention of Genocide. Where's the Geneva Conventions coming from? Is it Palestinian invention? Is it something, Palestinian invented it? Or it's the creme de la creme of better, bad, ugly human experience, especially in the Second World War, where 85 million civilians paid their life for a war between armies. The word said, yes, the war should be between the armies and civilians should be protected at the time of war. They are not part of it, and they are entitled for that. So all these conventions, all these agreements, came for very simple reason. Who commit something wrong should be held accountable. Who commit evil should be held accountable. And civilians and civilian objects and targets should be protected at the time of war. October 10th, His Excellency the President of Israel said, no distinguish in Gaza between Hamas and civilians. All of them complicit and the criminals. We will get them all. Netanyahu said, Gazans should leave Gaza. Where to? Either up or to Sinai. Gallant, the Minister of Defense, said, Gazans and Palestinians are human animals. We will get them all. No distinction between civilians and there will be no water, no food, no fuel, and I'm talking about the Minister of Defense, not Minister of Economy. In October, after the war, I was discussing some of the facts on the ground with some counterparts, international lawyers, jurists across the globe, maybe 40 of them. And they were asking, what's Raji really happening? We formed what we call it a group of genocide on October 16th, meaning after just 9 days of the war. Doesn't take that much. From day one, there was massive killing. There was massive destruction. There was massive displacement. And there was massive famine began to shape up. I lived all my life one-way ticket at that part of the world. I never witnessed anything like that, anything close to that, or anything, you know, I can imagine reach up to that. Again, I'm not neither stupid or naive, but can they do it? I mean, this way, in this obvious, massive way? I saw with my own eyes hospitals who were sheltering 30, 40,000 around it. And inside it, there is patients, nurses, doctors, people. They were bombed with rockets 2,000 pounds, 850 kilos. And you see the parts and pieces of the patients and the civilians there, just up in the air, and the sky rains with the parts and pieces of their bodies. I was seeing, I mean, people lining for bread at the bakeries, killed in tens. I saw and witnessed entire buildings, I mean, 10, 12, 14 stories, beautiful, nice buildings with the people inside it, entirely knocked down with the people inside it. I saw entire quarters of Gaza, I mean, being erased with the people inside it. I never thought why the Israeli hate the sewage system in Gaza, why they bomb it, why they destroy it. Electricity factories, water desalination plants, UNRWA, places of storage of UNRWA, of food and medicine. Everything you can dream of was subject to incredible bombing and erasing it. Now, we tried in the early this century, 2001, 2, 3, 5, 6, universal jurisdiction cases, because we concluded, we and B'Tselem, the leading Israeli human rights organization, that the Israeli legal system provide full legal cover for organized systematic crimes, war crimes, apartheid, persecution. They legalized everything. They legalized extrajudicial killing, targeted killing, administrative detention, house demolition, a blockade of Gaza, name it. I mean, whatever. I made thousands of cases to the Israeli legal system and High Court of Justice. Never, ever we succeeded in any of them. So that's why we resorted in the early century to universal jurisdiction cases in Spain, UK, and other places. And we managed to make some achievement, but soon these fantastic European democratic legal of law systems, I mean, we discovered that they began to do legislations, regulations, blocking us from using the system. We in UK, for example, used to resort directly, to the court to go provide our evidence, business as usual, and Daniel Macover will furnish, the court with all needed evidence, in this or that case, and they say, fantastic, and they issue warrant. And they say, no, you cannot do that. You have to have permission from the prosecutor office. And then they said, no, it's not only that, you have to go to the police or a crime unit, and then you have to have the permission of the prosecutor office. And then they said, it's not enough, neither the first or the second or the third. You have to do something more. If he or she coming in a special mission, they are having immunity, and you cannot hold them accountable. You cannot target them. They are immune. Even Sibyl Livni, when she was visiting here, though Netanyahu hate her, they claim that she has special mission immunity, and that's the way how she get along with it and managed to escape, though there was decision or warrant to arrest her by British court. In Spain, different story. In Spain, they apologized. Maratinius, the foreign minister, apologized, and he promised to change the law, and in 8 months he changed the law. And this had happened in Switzerland, Netherlands, etc., consecutively. So we said, let us try ICC. Went to the ICC. And there was great political pressure mounted, and took us from 2009 till 2016 to be able, till 2015 January, till we were able to register Palestine as state member in the ICC. 4 years of preliminary investigation and 2 years at the pre-trial chamber. 2021, there was decision to open investigation by this fantastic piece of African marble, Fatou Bensouda, to challenge and open, the investigation. But soon after that, Mr. KK Karim Khan took over in June, and nothing moved till what we have in Ukraine. In the Ukrainian case, immediately in 22 moved and began to roll up. But in Palestine, no. And when we try to use our best during this genocide war with the ICC, we came to conclusion nothing will move. That's why we resorted to the ICC. And to that, you need the state to adopt it. The options were not many, unfortunately. And South Africa accepted that. And 29th of December, the case was filed in the ICC, in the ICJ. And January 11th, South Africa made history by defending the blood, pain, and suffering souls of women and children of Gaza when they used all their moral authority in charging Israel with the genocide. the most serious charge ever in the most important case on earth and in the most important court on earth. And the court accepted that. And a team of fantastic lawyers were able to present that in the most eloquent, committed way. And he can do that. And there was a day where South Africa again made history. 3 provisional measures were issued in January, February, and April. It's basically related to access humanitarian aid, food to Gaza, when the famine was on the peak. The court has no army, no law enforcement agency. That's the mission of the states. They have to do that. None of them did that. And ICJ tend to be like a court for a bunch of intellectuals who say whatever they think, but it has no validity, I mean, on the ground. That's a big shame. Something moved with the ICC, and 2 warrants only were issued. They are not lack of information. They are not lack of legal files. They are not lack of chain of command. But 2 warrants, fine, and it's a precedent against Netanyahu and Gallant. What the reaction was. ICC and the ICJ, because of the provisional measures and because of the 2 warrants, were threatened, intimidated, and even presidential decrees were issued. And they said, if ICC or ICJ dare to issue or implement any of these, there will be the judges and the prosecutors will be held accountable. That means they can be subject to arrest. They can be, their visas being cancelled. They will never have visas again to the US, and their credit cards, accounts will be as well frozen. Their properties, if they have any in the US, will be confiscated. They cannot attend the meetings of any of the UN agencies, I mean, in New York, even if it's related directly to their work. We can understand this most mighty country on earth do that. But what about the other states? I mean, the founding members of the ICJ, did they say anything really in defense of the most important 2 courts on earth, ICC or ICJ? Nothing. Like, I mean, judges and prosecutors are there for private issues, I mean. On July 19th, last year, the ICJ was looking in different case, an advisory opinion. What about the illegality of the occupation, whether the Israeli occupation legal or illegal? And after years of discussions and deliberations, they concluded simple conclusion that the occupation illegal and should be abolished and Palestinian people should be entitled for their right of self-determination and independence. And they classified what is the mission or mission and the obligations of the states, how to enable Palestinians to achieve their right of self-determination and independence. Well, nobody listened to that. They resorted to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly took this decision, included, and decided that the state parties, should enable Palestinians max by September 11th, 2025, meaning after a few months, of the right of self-determination and independence. But yet, though this already, 6 months ago, nothing moved, and we don't know about any state did anything to enable Palestine with that. Now, we can ask a simple question. Is the Gaza, the graveyard of international law, international humanitarian law, and the human rights, is it there where it ends? The genocide, it's not a matter of whether it's happening or not. It's broadcasted live, streamed live, at the real time. Not since one day or 1 week, 1 month. It is already 1.5 years. The whole world watching it, seeing it, knowing it. Is it the fate and destiny of the Palestinian people? Just to be slaughtered as such at the daylight? What values, we share with the world? Do we share values of rule of law, democracy, human rights, protecting civilians, international law, international humanitarian law, or what we are having, rule of jungle? Rule of jungle doesn't go, one-way ticket. Yes, we are paying dearly and heavily. And every day we are losing our dears, our kids, our babies, our moms, sisters, and elders. In Gaza, no hospital anymore. The 39 hospitals erased. In Gaza, no schools anymore. All of them erased. No clinics, no desalination water plants, and no sewage system, no roads, no electricity. 90% of the buildings erased, don't exist. No tree. If we want to produce an egg, we need 14 months from today. This place where is no university left, where almost 285 journalists killed, 300 lawyers killed, almost 400 intellectuals, academics, deans, presidents of universities, first-class poets, writers, erased and don't exist. I have a question. What's the problem of Europe with 18,000 Gazan children. I mean, were they evil with them? What about 14,000 women died? Can you imagine, I mean, in the 21st century, that you and your children, not only your home destroyed and you living the death 24 hours, 50 times a day, and you are just in famine where hardly you can find undrinkable water. And if you want to eat, you can have some bread every 3 or 4 days for your children. I'm not talking about food at all. Talk about bread. That's what the food means. I think this is a big shame. Big shame on Israel, definitely, as an occupying power, a state who do genocide at the daylight, proud of it. In any crime, especially in genocide, the very, very hard evidence you can find about the intent. We managed to document at least 840 statements on the record from the president till the commanders of the area, leaders of political parties, Knesset members, ministers, cabinet members, etc. They are flagrantly, proudly declaring their intent. Facts are evident. I mean, it's everywhere. So the intent and the evidence is there. The Pope in the Second World War knew about the Holocaust. And the Israelis said, shame on him. He knew, and he said nothing. He should apologize in writing and publicly. And he did. Any can claim we don't know. We are not going to be victims or good victims for anybody on earth. We have no right to be a good victim. Resistance, as the French say, it's not only right. It's right and obligation on a free people. We will resort to all legitimate means. And we will use effectively international law, international humanitarian law, human rights, the ICC, the ICJ, the universal jurisdiction. No power will stop us from there because we belong to the nations and people who believe in rule of law. And we will show we have moral, legal superiority on the criminals of the 21st century. We are, with very good heart and mind, contributing with our share in this. And we know we are on the right side of history. We know we are defending just, fair, and right cause. We will never give up or be good victims. We know tomorrow is ours. All what they are trying to do, make us lose hope in tomorrow. Never ever we will lose hope, and we will keep a strategical optimism that tomorrow will be ours. We deserve justice and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Raji. The Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers has been around for about a century, and during that time, we have supported many struggles, whether it is in relation to climate, against the ill treatment of refugees, against injustice at Guantanamo, and we have also remained strong in our support for Palestine. So I'm really grateful to ICOP and to you and to Raji for being here, because I think it is important that we hear from those on the ground in Gaza. And it is in that vein that I will start with I have some questions, but I will save those and not abuse the chair. But I'd like to start with some questions from you for Raji in relation to what we can do as a community to show solidarity with Palestinians, with Palestinian doctors, with Palestinian journalists, with Palestinian lawyers, and with the Palestinian people at a defining moment in history. Any questions, please? Yes, Les, please. I'll come to you next.
I want to ask how the Gaza protests help.
Could you just wait 1 second? Thank you.
I want to ask how the Gaza protests globally help to contest the complicity of UN institutions, in particular the ICC, ICJ. And I mentioned a quotation which probably many of you saw in an article in Middle East Monitor, when the chief prosecutor at the ICJ, his name was
ICC, Karim Khan.
That's it. So, yeah. When he showed he was serious about getting arrest warrants against at least the leaders in Israel, he was privately warned by a US politician with this kind of phrase. Remember, the ICJ was designed for Africans and people like Putin, not for the West, right? So, and that helped to reveal the implicit colonial assumptions of all UN institutions, all Western institutions, right? But somehow, he persevered, and then the arrest warrants provided an extra weapon, an extra tool for the movements all over the world to demand that our own governments then implement the arrest warrant. So there was some contest over the complicity. I want to ask you, how you see the bigger picture of the movement contesting the complicity.
We take some
more questions. Sabi? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Raji for a very moving, if disturbing, presentation. I was very glad to meet Raji again. We met in Gaza some years ago. Yes, my question, it's one question, one announcement, if that's okay. This follows on, I think, from Leslie's question. We are appalled, those of us in the Palestine Solidarity Movement, by the continuing complicity of the British government, witnessing every day what you have described so graphically and so movingly, the destruction of whole communities of so many civilians and so on. And they continue to allow the shipment of arms made in Britain to the Israeli army, which I think should not be called the IDF, but the IGF, the Israel Genocide Force, actually. So we have had one minor success in that 30 arms export licenses were suspended. And I think that is in part a tribute to the solidarity work, all the demonstrations, national and local, that have been taking place in Britain, up and down the country in the last 18 months. This must be the worst Labour government in the history of the British Labour movement, and I can assure you there is some competition for that title. But what are the chances, and I ask you this as an international lawyer, do you think, what are the chances of the ICJ issuing indictments against members of the British cabinet for complicity in the genocide? Secondly, an announcement, if I may. The Palestine Solidarity Campaign have issued a new call for BDS work, boycott, divestment, sanctions, up and down the country. In London, we've been asked to picket Sainsbury's in Camden Town to ask people not to buy Israeli products, asking Sainsbury's not to stock any Israeli brands or companies that invest in Israel, like Coca-Cola. Yesterday, there was a magnificent turnout outside Sainsbury's Camden Town. Over 70 people turned up. It was a peaceful demonstration, no counter-protesters. I was happy to see the police kept a low profile. A very successful event yesterday. The same thing will be repeated next Saturday outside Sainsbury's Camden Town at 11 o'clock. I invite everybody here to join us in that event. Thank you very much.
One more question? Could I take one more question? Yes, please, Jonathan, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you so much for holding this event, and thank you, Ravi, for that inspirational and very moving speech. My name is Jonathan Fluxman. I'm a retired healthcare worker. I'm involved in campaigning to isolate Israel in the health field internationally as part of the BDS campaign. I wanted to ask you a specific question about the July ICJ ruling about apartheid and the occupation and the duties of member states to implement sanctions and to isolate the regime, really. Whether that law, that ruling, has any jurisdiction or implications for international health organizations, and I would add international professional organizations across the board. Israel tries extremely hard and has been very successful in embedding itself internationally through all of these organizations. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, lawyers, engineers, mathematicians, scientists, chemists, you name it. The Hasbara campaign has been incredibly effective over decades. You look at the leadership of these organizations, and almost invariably, there is an Israeli as the president, the general secretary, or in the secretariat or the executive. So my question is, can we use that ICJ ruling in July to put pressure on these international organizations who are, again, Western dominated and who seem impervious to pressure and appeals, etc.? And my great friend and comrade Derek will tell us all about that. He's been doing this work for 20 years with the World Medical Association. So can that law help us in our efforts to isolate Israel? Thank you.
There can be short or long answers for the three questions proposed, but I'll choose, the short one, because each one of them, it can take entire lecture. Now, whether UN system complicit or not, they are not. They are not. They were pressured. We are human beings, and we have to understand that if you are a judge, that doesn't mean you are having 2 pistols in your side and you have 20 to protect you wherever you go. Fatou bin Souda, they came to her at her office, right? To her office, the head of the Mossad. And he said to her, you will pay your life for that. Don't. She complained to the Dutch police. And the Dutch police said to her, oh, that's horrible. That's bad. That's ugly. We will give you a paper. If you feel there is a danger in your life, you press the paper. In 5 minutes, the police will be with you. That's silly. That's stupid. This is the complicity of the states. You see, US is threatening the judges, the prosecutor, any presidential decree. What do you do? What UK said, what France said, Germany. Did any of them defend this institution? None. It's more. ICC issued 2 warrants. And a few days later, France say, of course, if PB comes to Paris, we have no intention to arrest him. Germany the same. UK the same. Is ICJ gathering of intellect? ICC, I mean, warrants are opinion for somebody, I mean, about a subject. You are talking about warrant, legal warrant. So if we want to speak about strong ICJ or ICC, they should be strong because states who claim they are for rule of law, democracy, and human rights show and demonstrate genuine respect for these decisions, for these institutions. Now, whether Britain can be held accountable at the ICJ? Unfortunately, due to severe pressure in April 4th, Nicaragua pulled its case against Germany. States only, I mean, subject to political pressures, and Nicaragua, who tried to sue Germany, and I think later on their intent was US and UK, they withdrew the case. Publicly, they said for financial reasons, but practically for the really threat and direct threat imposed on Nicaragua. But legally speaking, yes, UK not complicit, Europe not complicit. They are partners in the genocide. We are killed now by European, American bombs, ammunitions, and jet fighters. Every day, our women and children are killed by these, because if states, you know, say Israel do have the right of self-defense, I mean, any have ever heard about a state occupying and belligerent state have the right of self-defense? Macron and the Prime Minister of UK and the Chancellor of Germany, US President, go and visit, and they say, of course, Israel have the right of self-defense. If occupation, like you are saying, Russia legitimately have the right, I mean, to occupy Ukraine and kill the Ukrainians and occupy Ukraine because, I mean, of its self-defense, as Putin said. So UK, yes, I mean, I hope one day it will be held accountable for the partnership in the genocide. Now, 19th of July, and whether the advisory opinion about the illegality of the occupation has something to do with health, of course. I think it's very, very, very important for every state, for any civil society activist across the globe, should read thoroughly this, because whether the advisory opinion or the General Assembly resolution for this advisory opinion, it states in a very clear way the roadmap, what state should do, what civil society should do worldwide in order to enable Palestinians to achieve the right of self-determination. They put in a legal, eloquent way this result, and they are asking them, I mean, in helping Palestinians of achieving their independence. Yes, of course, among them, in health aspect, absolutely.
Thank you. We'll take 3 more questions. Could I start with the gentleman who was waiting patiently? You're okay, thank you. The lady here, Sam, and then the gentleman at the back, and then I'll come back. I saw another hand, Haim and Marie. I'll come to you in a second. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation and laying out what's at stake. I'm from the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, and we ran a picket in Swiss Cottage against the Israeli ambassador who lives in Swiss Cottage in a house owned by the Israeli state. We picketed in front of her house for 20 weeks until the police banned us from her house. We moved to the library in Swiss Cottage till the police banned us from the library. We were then around the tube station in Swiss Cottage with the support of Jewish Network for Palestine until the police banned us from there as well. And so now, after we had 69 weeks in Swiss Cottage, we're now in front of New Scotland Yard protesting the bans. The Israeli ambassador, for anybody who doesn't know, said that 600,000 deaths in Gaza was acceptable, which of course we all recognize as being a genocide. If anybody should do that, should recognize that, Jews should recognize that. And I should also state, since I don't think most people know it, that there were more than 100 armed rebellions by Jews during the genocide in Germany and Eastern Europe. I mean, armed resistance was a commonplace. My question to you really is twofold. We tried to, at the same time that we were picketing the house, we tried to get the police to move on her, since what she was doing was clearly publicly supporting the genocide and being complicit with the genocide. They said she had diplomatic immunity, even though they agreed that she may well be breaking the law. My question is there, and of course, we have people in Germany who are suffering similar kinds of repression, and in the United States, and is there a network of lawyers being put together internationally to deal with both the repression on the one hand, which is coming down on all of us, and the whole movement, frankly, not just the pro-Palestinian movement, but is there a network of lawyers being put together, both for the defense against those and to take action of the kinds that you're talking about, and offensive actions against the Israeli state, the British state, the American state, the German state, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you. The lady in front, please. And you're right, Sam. There's a lot of repression taking place in Palestine, but it's revealing the level of repression and brutality here in our own states. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm a member of the Artists for Palestine UK. What we do is we We urge artists not to show their work or visit Israel, also support organizations that get into trouble for exhibiting Palestinian work. But my question, not to do with that, what's the general understanding and analysis in Palestine about why the West support Israel in the way that they do and why they turn a blind eye on the atrocities, while at the same time there is the world jumping to support Ukraine when Russia invaded, launched their attack?
Thank you. Shall I take one more question? Question, there was a gentleman at the back who had his hand raised. Yeah. We're just getting the mic over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, just been wondering, there's been no real mention of the Arab states here. Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, Bahrain, they've all been silent, really. And that's the biggest victory of Israel, I think, has been the silence and complicity of these shameful countries, you know. I've been working in the Middle East for several years, and there's a massive gap between what the governments say and what the people think. I mean, most of the people are totally against Israel. So I'm just wondering, why isn't there a movement towards the Arab world having their own NATO, okay, which would be nuclear armed maybe, and powerful, and that they will stop these genocides that we see in Gaza? I mean, you can call it NATO if you want, the Muslim, but seriously, I mean, there should be an armed unity amongst the Arab nations to have a force that will protect countries like Gaza and Palestine from what's happening.
I am not a politician, I mean, to answer your question, and I don't like, I mean, political questions, honestly. But we are suffering from the Arab regimes not less than Israel sometimes. I mean, so whether they have nuclear arms or have any other arms, I mean, it might be used against their own people, yeah, to suppress and oppress more. Regarding, I mean, I don't talk on behalf of Palestinian people, neither Gazan. I express my very, very personal point of view. That doesn't mean I don't